It's time to grab the keys to the bike and go for a ride to France. In 2018 we went to France to explore the Normandy beaches, but it was a washout. We had to rethink our plans and ended up only really seeing the Pegasus Bridge and some local attractions. So the question after that trip was, would we ever do it again? And the answer was, yes. Only this time we're prepared. We have a plan for good weather and for bad. Once again heading from Portsmouth, just in time for the D-Day celebrations. I love going to these type of events at this time of year because of the people that you meet en route and their passion for all things World War II. This is where Portsmouth differs from Dover. On the bike, I've never been stopped in Dover, not at customs, but in Portsmouth, every time. I won't complain, they're pretty fair with motorcyclists here and don't really mess you about. As with all the ports I've been to, bikers are let on first. It gives you time to park up, secure the bike and get all your kit sorted before the mad rush of cars come on. Another difference with Portsmouth ships compared to Dover ones is that in Portsmouth you park in the centre of the ship rather than tucked away in the corner. Another Boxer fan. Had a really interesting chat with this guy whilst waiting to board. He's done a really nice job on that bike, completely authentic. Now, the crossing in 2018 was even calmer than this, and we still had appalling weather in France. On the Dover ferries, motorcyclists are let off first. On the Portsmouth ones, it's every man for himself. So with 5 lanes of traffic bottling into 2, you need to have your wits about you. Fortunately, there's plenty of places to stop and regroup before you get to passport control, so you can still leave the port as a group, as a team. This is Ouistreham, which I'm sure I'm not saying properly, so from now on it's going to be called the French Port. And this is Passport Contrôlé, who were very nice and got us through very quickly. As with our 2018 tour, the hotel is only a few hundred yards away. A very handy place to stay, with covered parking for your bikes. The rooms are small but reasonably priced, which is more I can say for the bar. Never used the restaurant, so can't comment on that, but did have breakfast, which is continental, so no English here, guys. But the staff are friendly enough, and it's only a 5-minute walk to the bars and the restaurants. The Normandy landings were split into 5 sections: Sword, Juno, Gold, Omaha, and Utah. Utah and Omaha were predominantly American landing sites, whereas the others were mainly British, Canadian and some French Special Forces. The plan for day 1 is to ride to Utah. The roads along this coastline vary. The D514 is the main coast road and runs through the local towns and along the coastline. This will take you right the way to the end of Omaha Beach. There's a slight diversion and then you pick up the D421, which takes you into Utah Beach and the rest of the beach trip. They're scenic, very narrow and very slow, leading onto a promenade and through some residential areas and a couple of villages. It's very much a sightseeing run. It's certainly not a fast or windy enjoyable ride, so it's there just to see life in the local area. And as you'll see later, it's these roads and these speeds that buggered up my battery. I can't say the coast road was my favourite ride, but once you get away from the coast road onto the country roads and the dual carriageways, riding gets better. The nice thing with this area is that these roads are all very close together, so if you get bored you can easily switch to a different riding style very quickly. The motorways are reasonably congestion free, and so you get quite a good ride on these. Of course, this isn't a heavily populated area, and when you get onto the country roads, that's when riding gets interesting. As long as the weather holds out for you, these roads are scenic, they're windy, they're fast, they're slow, and they're interesting. What's more is the entire War Tour beaches can be done in half a day if you're just riding the bike. And we arrived safely at our first tourist War Tour destination. The German Navy set up this battery, 21 blockhouses linked by more than a kilometre of trenches and totally restored. Only one of the 4 210mm guns still exists at this location. This battery represented a real danger for the ships transporting American troops to Omaha Beach. It had a range of up to 21 miles and took part in the engagement against the US ships on D-Day on the 6th of June 1944. It was evacuated only 5 days later and never took part in the war again. The American 1st Battalion, 22nd Infantry Regiment and 4th Infantry Division started their advance towards this place on the 7th of June. By the morning of the 11th of June, the battery and its staff had run out of ammunition and medical equipment. All the guns were out of service. Nearly 80 Germans escaped from this location and made it to the German lines, which was roughly 5 miles away. Today it's a tourist attraction, with volunteer reenactors giving you a flavour of what the place would have been like. From the German battery, we ride country roads to Omaha Beach and the American War Cemetery. I've done many videos in the past of our ride every year to Madingley Cemetery in Cambridge with the Allied Memorial Remembrance Ride. The Normandy Cemetery is very similar to Madingley in its makeup, but it's massive. It's so difficult to understand the scale of the people that died here. Leaving the American cemetery, we head further down the coast to Gold Beach. Here we visit the German battery at Longues-sur-Mer, where 4 well-preserved bunkers that still have some of their 150mm guns inside them. The battery is sited on a 200-foot cliff overlooking both Gold and Omaha Beach. In the run-up to D-Day, it was attacked by British and American bombers, and on D-Day came under fire from British and French cruisers. And on the 7th of June, the remaining crew surrendered without a fight to the Devonshire Regiment. During this sustained attack, only 1 gun remained operational, and to this day is still in place. I couldn't help but keep in the back of my mind that here we were, on holiday on a motorcycling trip, enjoying ourselves when actually the background to this is absolutely tragic. The damage and the loss that these places caused, and caused by the people that worked in them, is just immense. But without the loss and the sacrifice of those people way back when, we wouldn't have the freedoms that we have today to enjoy these bike rides. For me, it was important just to keep that in the back of my mind, because on our first visit to Normandy, we met 4 or 5 different veterans that we could talk to. On this one, we met one. Very soon there'll be none left to tell the tales and remind us of what happened back then. Our final homage on this trip is to the British Normandy Memorial. I kind of expected to see a few motorcyclists here and wasn't surprised when I got here, again reminding me of our AMRR. It was opened in June 2021, the 77th anniversary of D-Day, and it's dedicated to soldiers who died under British command during the Normandy landings. The memorial records the names of 22,500 people from more than 30 countries that were under British command and that were killed during the Normandy landings. On doing some research into this place, it turns out that in July 2015, George Batts, a veteran of the Normandy landings, met with a BBC journalist, and Batts pointed out that the United Kingdom was the only major Allied nation without a dedicated memorial in Normandy. As a result, the Normandy Memorial Trust was set up. The centrepiece of the memorial is a bronze sculpture with larger-than-life statues of 3 soldiers coming ashore during the landings. And written on these walls are the names of 1,746 people killed on D-Day, the 6th of June 1944. It's the end of our tour and our second visit to Normandy, and once again we've only seen a fraction of what there is to see. Before heading back to the port, it's time to refuel and be ready for the boat ride back to the UK. And no trip of mine is complete without something going wrong with the bike, and on this occasion I realised there's something wrong with the battery. I think my battery's on its way out. Yeah. And sure enough, the battery had died. Fortunately, the local Carrefour had one of these little gadgets, and I spent the rest of the trip jump-starting the bike every time we came to a stop. On closer inspection back in the UK, it wasn't the battery. It was the stator that had burnt out, which had actually destroyed the battery as well. So, a new stator, another £70 later. And a reminder to always have one of those jump starters. They're a lifesaver. Take care guys, and ride safe.